Uh, remember that actually for this course actually, and as per the main aim is to bring the easiest technology to the developers and to the end users as well. And since we are starting with VSP at the beginning, in this unit actually we are going to clarify more. Last unit actually, which is chapter number 4, we were talking about the single and the repeated value binding methodologies, via which we go beyond populating controls and views, say front-end controls and front-end views. What we're going to see in this chapter is the appropriate tools we need to use actually to populate or let's say to bring the values to the front-end interface. What does it mean? Means actually, I asked you at the beginning of this class one question, which is how developers do select the appropriate controls, the .NET controls to populate data or to display data, to visualize data to the front-end interface. This is the main, actually, the answer to this question is the full chapter, but we're going to see today. We will define the appropriate controls. I use the word appropriate. Why? Because we are going to use them all for different for different purposes, and based on the purpose, the control will be selected. So let's begin. .NET controls is not a new terminology for us. We know that since the chapter number 1, which is the ASP.NET technology. So controls for us, they are recognized as the .NET, let's say, fruits, outcomes, tools, weapons, utilities. They are all actually at the hand of the developers to use whenever they are needed for different purposes. But our concern mainly here in this chapter is to populate data, to visualize data, to graphically and to visually display what the user needs, and to help not only to visualize but to help him actually for addition purposes, because controls that would help users to make additions. So we may visualize, yes. In addition to that, we may make additions. So we visualize and we make additions. Yeah, both. Yeah, it's possible. The very famous controls we are going to start with, those are actually tools. We use them for multi-value display, for multi, let's say, value. Yes, I can stick in this. Uh, what does it mean? Uh, when we define the single value binding and the repeated value binding last chapter, we said that the single value binding, it is a visualization of a one value in the front end interface. Methodology to follow in order to visualize one value, an ID, a name, a major name, a course name, whatever, a value, a date, a value, a one value. Single value binding is a methodology for one value display of purpose. Repeated value binding, it is a context via which we display multi-values, but we may refer to a single resource or single source in background. We saw the example of the URLs and the bulleted list control, and how we were able to visualize the text and the values in plural within the same control. Grid view is one of the controls that helps us to display multi-valued resources in the front-end interfaces. It's a grid that helps us to visualize in a grid form data which is actually stored in a background entity, whatever it is, a database, or it is a local in the cache, in the browser's cache source. I believe that it has to be very clear actually the context of when I say a source, not a database table or database entity. I use a source because we might refer to the dataset or the data reader technology is one of them to populate a control, and the both of them, they are having different capabilities. Dataset, it can use the cache content to populate a control. The cache content, it is something either retrieved from a data source, from let's say a database entity, or it is something defined from within the body of the page, and it is stored inside the cache, the browser's cache, whenever the page in question has been called. So it has to be clear what I just defined right now. Actually, we saw so many times, and it's not the first time. Yeah, it has to be again and again clear. We have to stress on that. Details view, it's another multi-value tool that we can utilize. It's a control that we can utilize to populate um, multi-value data in the front end interface. Uh, it is another control. You may say that since we are going to display multi-value, why you are having a variety? There are differences. We are having a variety. Why? Because we do have differences from this to the other. We do have different differences. This regard. Multi-value to be displayed, we can use the details view. Yes, but this is actually with more details. Yes, but that means actually all the needed properties related to that object. It might be displayed, but in a form of one record. So we have a record. Now we are defining the technical word. The record, it's a one given list of properties to one object or one instance. Yes, so this is one of the very famous differences when we compare the grid view to the details view. Another control that we might refer to, or the developers might refer to visualize data in front end, let's say data in the front end interface, is the forms view or the form view. This is another way we can use to display a single record. Yes, it supports editing as well as this details view. It supports editing, but there is a difference actually. This one, it displays one record and it supports editing, but there is a difference here. Actually, it is much more flexible in the sense of it helps to display the list of the properties required. Details view, it's a one single record, yes, but it is as per the architecture defined in the entity, in the background entity. Here we can define that accordingly to what the user needs to see. Means it is much more flexible. The display, the list of the properties displayed in a single record, they are to be customized. Not only that, the sources of those properties that this form can display, it is based on the use of a template. In the sense of we can bring multi sources to display one record in a form view. Table number one, we use a value. Table number two, we use another value, and all of them we concatenate them to display one single record in a form view, which is actually not easy to do whenever we talk about a details view. So now we are able to see the differences. So all of them, they support, the three of them, they do support the multi-value to be displayed in a grid form. Yet this is a table-like, means multi-records to be shown in just one shot. This is to actually show one record, and it helps in doing the, let's say, it helps the user to make additions when needed or when required. This one do the same as the details view. It displays one single record, and it helps the user to make additions, but it follows a template to display the record content, the record architecture. Means here a template doesn't means actually it is to be customized according to the needs of the developer or according to the need of the end user. Grid view, it is one of the very let's say powerful technology, let's say .NET technologies that can be utilized to display table-like data. It is to link, to be binned to a background data source, and it would visualize all what the background entity has. It is to display multi record and multi-column values. It is a table. It is a table like. It is a table like grid view. We are not saying table. What we see visually, if you do not know what is a grid view, you'll see a table at the end of the day. Yet it is a grid view because it is a separate technology. A table, you cannot have a control on the table. Why? Because the table at the end of the day, it has an architecture that only to visualize data. But when we talk about the grid view, but when we visualize a grid view, when we visualize, just give me a second, please. So when we visualize the grid view, we will be have extra features to be control. Let's say not control, but to be added functionalities here to be incrementally to be added to the view what the user can see. It is not only to see the data, but it can do other functionalities like sorting, editing, maybe updating, maybe deleting, even other functions to be done. Because of the use of the grid view only, using the table, it will not be actually available. Those functionalities, those extra functionalities, they would not be available due to the use of the table. Table is not a control. Grid view is a control. Table is not a .NET technology. Grid view is a .NET technology. It's a solution from the .NET framework. Table is not. Remember this. Let's visualize an example. Let's visualize an example. Okay, these are very famous. Actually, it's not new to us. So here, once you see such a structure, immediately recognize it is a C sharp, but it is a C sharp that do deliver or develops, or let's say designs a solution. We have a connection since we are talking about the path here. We have a connection to a data source, SQL server. So we are referring to the specific edition SQL Express. We are having a query to do. This is a command. This is a command, and this command will follow the same connection. Since we are using the same con. We are starting this connection here at this level, and then after we are doing actually a concatenation in between the connection and the command, just to because the command, it is extracting data from a source, and this source is available in a specific part or in a specific data, let's say data store. The most important thing is that we are going to fill a control. We are going to fill a control, which is a data set. Here, the control is going to be filled from let's say a data set, and it is following the architecture of this user info. This user info is a table. So see here the user info. Select stuff from user info. Clearly understand that this user info is a table in the database. So this user info architecture would be actually used to populate this data set, this variable, user defined variable, which is a data set here at the beginning. Okay, good, great. So here, not population, but this template generation here will be used to be visualizing data using the multi-value binding methodology. We have to specify the source, and we have to call the binding method. We have to specify the source, data source here, and we have to do the binding. Very easy. So the grid view we define actually in the front end solution display actually data here aspx.cs. The page which is actually having a link to this background, let's say code or code behind file, has a component called grade view 1. We link the source and we call the binding method. Easy. Any questions here, please? Okay, great. So I believe everything is clear. visualization actually is an example to visualize this grid view content, something like this. So it is a table like whenever you see it would be actually something similar to a table, but it's not a table. It is not a table. Okay, great. Grid views actually they are table like, yes, absolutely, but in the sense of uh, they are having a structure to display, and this structure is the entity architecture the entity in background. Its architecture is going to be utilized by the grid view to visualize all the data. So how many, or if I ask a question, actually, let's go to the example we were explaining. Grid view one here, how many columns it do have? Answer is very easy. As many columns this user info have, or this user info has. So this grid view would have. Conclusion here, the grid view does not have an initial number of columns to display, yet it is having the number of the columns or the architecture, let's say, the entity it represents. The same architecture that, of the entity that it does represent. Yet it is not the limit. It is not the limit of this grid view. Why? Because we are able to generate extra fields. Here we can generate extra fields, means columns. We have, let's say, an entity like this one. We need to add a semester or registration semester field. Can we do that? Is it possible? Yes, absolutely to do that. We can add extra field, and the grid view, remember, we are not adding a column in a table. We are adding a field or a column also in a grid view. This is a control. This is a .NET solution. So, and the formatting also it can be actually done. What does it mean? We can give a header, a column, a field with a header by just using the actually in the ASP.NET, in the ASP.NET space, we just add this field here, column, a tag, no more, no less, and you add the values you require. So answer is yes, true. We'll stop. This field, this object here, we were able to add, which is an extra field to a grid view. The one we were discussing, we might add an extra field here, or a second or a third, and so on, as many fields as we need. They do have this field or those fields, this field or those fields, whether it is one or many as the developers need or the solution needs. They do have, let's say, common properties that they have to be actually utilized whenever needed, in the sense of what does the let's say the field, the new field, let's say represents the data it has to represent the source. Uh, does it actually, is it a simple text or it is a button to click, and so on. So some properties that you have to recognize. Means in conclusion here, we can add extra fields, yes, and also we can control the content of the extra field. Let's say actually we want to insert a button in front of each record, and this button is to select or to highlight or to copy or to delete that record. How to do that? From the solutions, remember that we have features to activate in the grid view. We were talking that we can have the ability to add extra features, yes, absolutely, to the grid view. But in addition to that, whenever we can not refer to this only because it is a functionality that the grid view do support, but we can, for different purposes, we can add our customized function. And this function, it would be actually called whenever an event is fired, means behind an event handler. So we can add a button. If I click the button in front here, this record will be deleted. If I click a button in front of the second record will be deleted, something like that. So we add a button. So we can do that. We can do that. And do what? We can add a field that do represents a button. So in front of each record, we can add a button. Full stop. So whatever the properties are, they are related to make the extra field be utilized for whatever the purpose is. Remember, the columns we are going to add, they are to be customized, means they are not only a template to just insert. Means you can add the customized header, we can add the customized formatting, and we can control the content. Customize the header as per the need. You can give the header you require as a developer. You can customize the format and the shape, the size, all the formatting, the styling, and the content itself based on the user properties, based on the use of the list of properties related to that field. Remember those properties here. Great. This is in the context of the addition. Means we add, we give birth to an extra field. But can we just omit what the real entity has? Can we delete this, for example, the address field? Can we delete or hide? The answer is yes. We can do that. So we can add the fields by just just removing the tags from the ASP.NET, from the ASP. As we added an extra field, we can delete a field, an available field in the ASP.NET interface. So the flexibility is actually 100% in between the hands of the developer. So the developer can add extra fields, can edit available fields, and can delete from the available fields. Conclusion. We can refer to different, let's say, properties that can be utilized to make good configuration to the let's say the grid view architecture. We can make formatting as per the need, or actually whatever. Because the grid view, it might have, as per an example, a grid view might have to display links, like the example of the we saw last class for the bulleted list. The grid view might display links to external resources, and those links to be displayed record-wise. So we may make a format for the hyperlinks. Make a format actually, and we might specify what to be displayed in the front end. For, let's say, front end, the text field. And one before I pass, one important notice here is that the formatting it is not only to specify the shape, how it looks like, as per the colors, the size, let's say the font type, and police, and so on. Not only, but if we take the example of the currency, we can control that. Actually, it is a very good example since the currency needs to be displayed as numerical value in addition to the currency type, US dollar, or let's say Omani Riyal or any other currency. So we might do this formatting here on top of the use of a grid view. The eight grid view styles that can be actually referred to, they are as per here again. These actually as per the need of the developer or the service required to be delivered to the end user, no more no less. So those grid view styles, they are formatting capabilities that we can refer to as per the need, no more no less. It means all of them, they will help to deliver the same service. It means the user actually, if the developer follows the first or the eighth, the user will receive the same service, but with different styling, no more no less. How many grid view, let's say, how many styles it do suppose? They are eight. So actually, those are visualization capabilities. The very famous IDE that we can refer to, the very famous IDE that we can refer to let's say, control the controls, edit the controls, use the controls. IDE means or stands for the integrated development. Integrated development environment, IDE. This is one of the very famous IDEs that we can use to use the .NET. Actually, as per the Microsoft, it is its own. It is it's the most famous amongst its all solutions that do support the use of the .NET controls, and it is one of the reasons that actually we are defining here for creating an ASP.NET solution, or for here to integrate the controls we are describing. It is not unique. It is not ASP.NET. The Visual Studio is the framework. It is the software application that we can refer to use the controls, to use the to develop .NET solutions, and so on. So from within the visual side of this Visual Studio or this IDE, we may do all the styling capabilities visually and graphically, in the sense of we can refer to the .NET. We can refer to the Visual Studio, let's say, front end development space to style our controls or style our front end interfaces with all the controls that it has. Graphically, this is one of the interfaces that we can refer to format or to style the grid views. But again, not only the grid views, the controls, we can say the controls. A grid view is actually a sort, a kind of a table to be displayed at the end of the day for the end user, to the end user. But it is not a table since we are having a bulk of data displayed altogether. Controlling a record is not as easy as when we talk about the table. Here, actually, I'm not saying that it is not easy, but it is with it has to be done with more precaution, and it has to be clearly set for a specific, let's say, field or for a specific record. It is different. It needs to be done differently. You may think that since it is complex and since it is more long, why should we refer to that? Let's use the table and the full stop. No, remember we are defining .NET. Why? Because we have to bin data from the background store. It is not a context to compare here. We do not compare the grid view to the table for easiness of use. No, the business or the service we are trying to implement requires a grid view, not a table. Thus, the grid view is required here. It's not a question of this is easy, this is hard. No, no, no. Just here, I'm highlighting that using a grid view, it is not the same way. It is not the same way when using a table. Where we see that in the example here, we are going to see this example. We are going to highlight a specific record. Let's highlight specific record. Okay, highlighting a specific record. Is it just simply a TR to highlight? No, no. There are predefined functionalities that we may refer to in order to do such task. In the example here, select a row or a record, a row or a record, either a row or a record, whatever. It's the same nomination. They are two different nominations for the same object. The example we are going to define here is the selected row style, which is let's say a methodology or a library that defines how to when we say select, what does it mean? To click on and to highlight. This highlight is to be customized. In this example, we are highlighting the background of this record here in red. How we do that? Because of the use of a predefined, let's say, library that do determines how to make the selection or the, let's say, the highlighting looks like, how it would appear. This actually library here or namespace, it has predefined functionalities to be utilized for this customization. Then here is the title example only. We are just highlighting the background, but we have a list of styles to apply. Not only the background color. So specifically, and for this purpose only, controlling a single or specific record in a grid view is possible. True. Then using a predefined namespace and predefined method, yes, true. Conclusion. The second property I presented to you in the list of properties we can add whenever we talk about adding a field is to add a button, the button field. In this example here is to add a button used for selecting a record. So we're going to use a specific command field that do selects or helps us to select the record where the button appears. It can be customized either to be a button or to be an image. We can do that, but both of them they do the same purpose, which is to select a record. It has to be actually clickable in the sense of when we click, it would be actually making an effect, which is to select the record in question. Immediately when we click the button, whether it is an image or a button like, it would actually do the effect preset by using those specific functions, those predefined functions. I'll stop at this level. I'll stop at this level. If you hear your name, just say yes, please.